Welcome to the Digital Nomad on Fire, and today I'm going to be talking about the toxic psychology of credit cards. Currently in Portugal, things are beginning to open up post-COVID. It's nice and sunny today. Yeah, the toxic psychology of credit cards. And I think if there's one thing that damages people's finance more than anything else, it's credit cards. It's certainly up there. And there's one thing we know, it's that the human brain isn't designed for the world we live in. The human brain was designed for when we were on the plains of Africa, hunting animals. Credit cards weren't available. That's what we've evolved for. That's what our brains have evolved for. So now there are different ways that advertising and finance exploit the fact our brains are not designed for the modern world, and they get us to do stupid things. Now, I'm not calling you stupid if you're in credit card debt. I've been in credit card debt. I'm saying that we're not wired to resist it. We have to make a conscious effort to plan, and in ways that means we don't get in credit card debt. And if we're susceptible to it, we need to just not have credit cards. Humans are wired in, now I'm not a psychologist, but we're wired to get immediate satisfaction. So if you have a credit card and you want something, it's very easy just to buy it on the credit card and not think about the consequences. And even if you know that that's the wrong thing to do in the long term, we still do it. It's like smokers. Smokers know that smoking is the wrong thing to do in the long term, but they still do it much of the time. That's not because they're stupid. It's because the human brain isn't wired to help us survive in the modern world in situations like this. So if there's one piece of advice I could give in terms of financial independence, it would be never pay interest on credit cards. Pay them off completely every month. And if you're incapable of doing that, and I actually think the majority of people are incapable of using credit cards responsibly. And I don't just include credit cards in this, I'm including things like car payments, or taking out credit to pay for things like holidays. If you can't control yourself, and I can't to some extent, then just don't own a credit card. Make it inconvenient for you to make bad financial decisions. Like at the moment I do own a couple of credit cards, but the points you get on them in Europe are far lower because Europe puts restrictions on how much of a percentage credit card companies can make with every purchase, which is good. It stops credit card companies making crazy profits, but it means we can't get some of our own money back in points. So if you're in the US, you can get pretty good points on cards. That's not even a particularly good thing you can do in Europe anyway. So once that argument's gone, there's almost no good reason to use credit cards for anything. All it is a constant temptation. If you don't have enough money for something, I'll just put this on the credit card this month. I don't quite have enough money to pay for that. Every penny you're giving credit card companies in interest puts you further away from financial independence. So I think there's, aside from just having maybe one credit card with you that you travel with in an emergency, in a real, genuine emergency, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to own a credit card. They tap into parts of our brain that are defenseless against them. And this is quite apart from the fact if you have some kind of addiction, shopping addiction, a gambling addiction, whatever it is, or if you're putting off, if you're in a lot of debt and you're putting off fixing your debt problems by just getting more and more credit cards and putting more and more debt on the credit cards, then you're just putting your financial independence further away. I can think of almost no situation, aside from the points thing, which I just covered, where credit cards are anything other than completely toxic. They're financial toxic waste. They do not serve you. You serve them. Unless you're extremely well off, live well within your means, and just harvest the points. And what percentage? And not just do that sometimes. Do that all the time. If you're harvesting the points successfully in the US, but you have like a 3-month period when you went on holiday or you lost your job, and you're paying interest again on that money, you've probably blown away any benefit you get from the points. Credit cards are just financial toxic waste. You should not go near them unless, firstly, you have a large, say a 6-month emergency fund. If you have a 6-month emergency fund, the need to put money on credit cards and start therefore having to pay interest on it will not arise, because you can use your emergency fund for that. Secondly, if you're living well within your means, this means that your rent is no more than 10 or 20% of your income. Like in Prague, my rent is about 10% of my income, or less, depending how much I'm earning. Because I'm freelance, my income varies. But my rent's about 10% of my income. Once you can get your rent down to such low levels, huge amounts of freedom come from that. So if you know that it's going to be trivial for you to meet all your costs, and it's very unlikely, basically impossible, that you're going to get in credit card debt because your income is so much higher than your expenses and you have an emergency fund, in that situation, and you can harvest some meaningful points from it. So basically, I think that means you live in the US. I don't know of any other. I'm not sure whether you can get decent points outside Europe and the US. Maybe you can. And you're getting really good points for it. You're playing a good points game. Maybe you should get a credit card. But for the 90% of people left, or 80% of people left, do not get a credit card. Just don't do it. It will not serve you. You'll serve it. It will make your life worse. Now, what happens when you don't have one? As I went from having them to not having them, you just find a way. You find a way of doing what you need to do. And once you've had to not pay interest a few times, you're already going to be better off. So rather than paying this legacy financial institution, these vultures who are stealing your money, essentially, I mean, not literally, but taking your money away, once you've got past the requirement to be paying them interest every month, you can be saving that money. Every penny of that money that you're saving is going towards your financial independence, your financial future. The reason credit card companies give good points is because they know we're weak, or they know we're not wired to resist the temptation of getting into debt and not paying off the full amount. If everyone paid off the full amount of their cards, points would be far less generous, and credit card companies would be way less profitable. So if you have credit cards now, I urge you to chop them up. I think the points thing is a distraction. Even if you're in the US, you can get good points. Unless you fulfill the criteria I just said, I think the points thing is a distraction. Humans are not wired for credit cards. Credit cards exploit our brains in ways that we're not designed for. Once you cut up your credit cards, once you stop using them, once you start saving the money instead, once you have an emergency fund, once you live well within your means, you won't need credit cards. And this stress will be out of your life. Knowing you have a balance to pay off in your credit cards, it's just stress. Like, how much is that stress reducing your health and your life? How much joy do credit cards really give you? They don't give you joy. They just give you stress. They're not good. Now, I'm not saying you should have debit cards. And there is one aspect of credit cards which can be useful, which is the insurance you sometimes get when, say, booking travel. But if you're going to use credit cards for this, and I don't think it's mandatory, and you could easily survive without doing this, if you're going to use credit cards for this, just use it for that, get the points if they exist, pay it in full, do not use that card for anything else. Never be tempted to use it for other stuff. Really, I think credit cards should probably be illegal. Now, that sounds strange from someone who's kind of a bit libertarian like me, but what's the point in them? Like, what benefit do credit cards bring society? Nothing. They're like currency traders. Credit cards exist to make banks who offer nothing useful ridiculous amounts of cash. And this is why I think it's great that cryptocurrency is going to sweep through and destroy the legacy financial system and put something much better and fairer in its place, and get rid of these legacy vultures who just take people's money and contribute nothing to society. Credit cards contribute nothing to society. So I think you should cut up your credit cards, Once you've got that emergency fund in place, once you're living well within your means, and maybe just use them for a limited amount of things like travel, your life will be better without credit cards, trust me. It's not adding anything, there's no joy there. The joy comes from financial independence, from being cancel proof, from knowing you have enough money for years without needing a job, for knowing you can't be cancelled, for knowing you can't be coerced into doing things, knowing you can go and live in any country cheaply because you have stoicism. And credit cards are actively working against all these things in your life. So consider chopping them up. Okay, that's today's rant. I will see you guys on the road.